All right, let's talk about one of the biggest, boldest gambles in automotive history. This is the story of how Toyota, a company famous for building sensible, reliable family cars, decided to take on the absolute titans of luxury and actually won.
I mean, think about it. That was the real question they were up against in the early 1980s. You had brands like Mercedes-Benz and BMW who had spent decades, literally decades, perfecting their craft. They were the undisputed kings. So how does a company known for the Corolla even begin to think about competing in that arena? So here's how we're going to break down this incredible story. We'll start with the secret mission that kicked it all off. Then we'll get into the almost crazy obsession with perfection, the moment they shocked the entire market, how they built a legacy that lasts to this day, and finally, where they're headed next. Our story starts not in a flashy design studio, but behind closed doors, with a single challenge from the very top of the company. It was a secret, it was a massive gamble, and really, it was a mission to do what everyone thought was impossible. It all kicked off back in 1983. The chairman of Toyota, E.G. Toyota, he gets his top people together and asks them a deceptively simple question. Can we build a luxury car that's better than the best in the world? This wasn't just about making a fancier Toyota. No, this was about beating the Germans at their own game, on their own turf. So this top-secret project gets a code name F1. And no, it has nothing to do with Formula One racing. It actually stood for Flagship One. The goal was to create the single greatest car Toyota had ever imagined, a true flagship for the entire company. You can just feel the pressure in that name. To pull off Flagship One, the team went on what you can only call a fanatical and almost insane quest for perfection. The numbers behind this effort are just staggering. They really tell the story of how far this team was willing to go. 450. Just let that sink in for a second. That's how many fully working, drivable prototypes they built and then systematically tested, evaluated, and in many cases, destroyed. You have to understand, for a normal car program back then, you might build a few dozen prototypes, maybe. This was a completely different level of commitment. It wasn't just engineering, it was an obsession. And that obsession continued with the absolute heart of the car, the engine. They were chasing this dream of a V8 engine that was so smooth and so quiet, it was almost surreal. To get there, they developed over 900 different engine prototypes. 900. They just kept refining and tweaking over and over, aiming for a level of silence the competition hadn't even considered possible. Of course, all of this, it comes with a massive price tag. Toyota sunk over $1 billion into this one project. And remember, that's in 1980s money. This was an all-in, bet the company kind of move. It was a clear signal they were dead serious about this. And really, this quote from the chief engineer sums up the entire mindset. They weren't just trying to copy a Mercedes or a BMW. They were trying to completely rewrite the rules. They wanted to create a whole new standard for what a luxury car should be. So after 6 years of this secret, obsessive work, it was finally time. The year is 1989. The world gets its first look at the result of Project F1. And honestly, the car industry was never quite the same after this. And this was it, the Lexus LS 400. It came with that buttery smooth V8 engine, and it was measurably, scientifically quieter inside than its German rivals. But the real earthquake was the price. At around $38,000, it wasn't just a bit cheaper, it was thousands and thousands of dollars less. This didn't just rattle the competition, it forced them to rethink everything. The game had been completely upended. But a great car is one thing, building a legendary brand is another. And Lexus was just masterful at this. You probably remember that famous TV ad with the pyramid of champagne glasses on the hood of a running engine. That wasn't just a gimmick. It was a simple, powerful demonstration of their engineering. And when they had a minor recall early on, they handled it with such incredible customer service that it actually made people more loyal to the brand. They built an entire luxury experience from the dealership down to the service, and it paid off. They hit #1 in initial quality in their very first year on the market. So the LS 400 was that first incredible shot across the bow. But Lexus quickly proved they weren't a one-hit wonder. They were here to stay, and they were about to go from being the disruptor to being a true leader. Once they had established their reputation, Lexus started to innovate in a big way. In 1998, with the RX 300, they basically invented the entire luxury crossover category. You know, the kind of vehicle that pretty much dominates the roads today. Then, a few years later, they pioneered the first luxury hybrid. And just to prove they could do it all, they built the LFA supercar, a machine that could hang with Ferraris. They were no longer just chasing the benchmarks, they were setting them. So, why does all this matter today? Well, the secret to their long-term success really comes down to this one core idea: Kaizen. It's a Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement. And for Lexus, this isn't just some poster on a wall, it's baked into everything they do. It's the reason they consistently top those reliability and customer satisfaction reports year after year after year. It all goes back to that original, fanatical quest for perfection. Okay, so let's fast forward to today. The entire auto industry is going through a massive transformation. Electrification, new technology, it's changing everything. So the question is, how does the brand that was once the ultimate challenger plan to stay ahead of the curve now? Well, it seems like their strategy moving forward is built on three key pillars. First, they're going all in on electrification, building on the decades of experience they already have with hybrids. Second, they're really pushing their F-Sport performance brand, directly taking on the Germans in terms of driving excitement. And third, you can see it in their new cars. They're embracing this really bold, unique design to make sure they stand out. The message is pretty clear. They're not getting comfortable. And that brings this whole story full circle. The creation of Lexus proves that if you want to disrupt an entire industry, a good product just isn't enough. It takes a massive risk, a billion-dollar bet, and an obsession that to outsiders might even look like madness. It really makes you wonder. In today's world, with all these new tech companies and startups trying to build cars, who has that same level of vision and that same level of obsession to become the next Lexus?